Righto, welcome back. We're going to try and get ready for drag challenge as much as we can now, just in case there's anything unforeseen that happens at the next meeting with the car. We want to make sure we're as organised as we can possibly be.
Break it down.
I'll get everything down from upstairs, go through the boxes of spare parts, probably show you guys a few things we take. We probably get a bit overboard, but it's better to have it and not use it than need it and not have it. So we'll see how we go. Righto, some of the stuff we have: a spare coil harness, just some oddball sensors, crank sensors, especially on these Hondas, they are common for failing. Injectors, we've also got a fuel tech injector in there, ignition coil, multiple different pressure sensors and connectors and stuff that are sort of applicable to the car. O2 sensor, spare bump and trans brake buttons, spare nitrous solenoids, spark plugs, our little spare board for our Turbo Smart E-gate, a set of leads and some other lead ends and bits and pieces to make up leads if anyone else needs one. Spare Alexa, relays and circuit breakers. And then down in the bottom of the box we just keep a whole heap of different gauge cable, some that are pre-pinned to go into the ECU. If we need to come up with something on the day, we can quite easily get in and do that. I've also found having connectors with a bit of a pigtail of wire hanging out can be quite handy, especially for them really important sensors like crank sensors. We have had in the past the alternator belt fly off and knock the wire out of there. So if you can have something like that that can just make it easier on the side of the road, it's always a bonus. Another thing that caught us out at the last meeting was my laptop is USB-C only. So the problem with that, the Haltech cord, I have to run a little adapter, and that adapter buggered up, so then I couldn't actually connect to the ECU, which is quite important with a car like this. So we've always got a spare little thing that you can use to get around that. Now make sure, let me know in the comments if there's something that you think I've forgotten. I'm more than happy to add it to the list. There's obviously going to be things that I don't have that some of you guys will. Now also, you guys that do drag challenge, I know some of you watch this channel, so at least if there's anything you guys need, just come over and see us. We're happy to share anything we've got. Now this is something I've been meaning to do for a while and just haven't gotten around to it. So all the instructions and different sensor configurations and things like that I keep in the Haltech ECU box that it come in. So that way I can quickly jump in, I can go straight to my wiring diagram of the car. I know every wire that I've used and where it goes, so if I need to reassign it or something happens along the way, that lets us diagnose stuff really quickly, which is always good on the side of the road. Another thing I forgot to mention, we keep a spare EGT sensor, 2 of them in there. But yeah, this stuff here, in a perfect world, I'd like to put into a laminated sort of binder or folder or something like that, so it's a bit neater to get to. But it's good having it there. Make sure if you're going to do these drag and drive things, I think having a bit of this information on hand definitely helps out. And all that electrical stuff fits like a glove. That's what you want to see. You don't want to make your boxes too tight, otherwise you can never get the lid on. We've learnt that in the past. You try and pack everything as neat as you can and fit in as much as you can, and then the day you pull it all out and need something, you can never get it back together. Righto, moving on, we've got a little assortment of bolts, washers, nuts, hose clamps, bits and pieces that I usually find as I'm playing with the car and I change something on the car. I'm always left with piles of different bolts. They all go in here, that way I sort of know they are useful on the car. There's a bit of Imperial stuff, bit of metric stuff, bit of bigger stuff for the rear end when it comes to control arm bolts and that sort of thing. So under the brake clean, perfect hiding spot for them bolts. Hopefully we don't need them, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Now another thing, brake clean. We go through a lot of it. I just find it's the easiest way to clean drain trays, funnels for filling engine oil. You know, we're using drain trays in between passes to empty the puke tank in the boot. So along with that, heaps of rags. We always end up running low by the end of the trip, so all it takes is one big oil spill and you'll use all them rags in one hit. So make sure you got plenty of them. It's always good to be able to keep your hands clean. Right, in this box, we've got a full gasket set for the transmission. Also got a spare trans brake solenoid. Now, other little bits and pieces that we always take with the drive-by-wire throttle, we have a spare pedal and a spare 72mm throttle body. Things not just for the car, obviously trailer wheel bearing, trailer wheel studs. Those wheel studs would probably keep the front of the car out of trouble if we needed them as well. A spare water pump in that bag. Now this is where we go really overboard probably. We've got so many different AN hoses, 200 series, 100 series, a lot of different fittings. There's another couple of cases of them. Now because we do run an adapter plate that has a custom starter motor, I've always kept a spare one of them thanks to Mr. Bill Hincher. So I keep that in the trailer, keep it with us at all times. Obviously being an automatic car, if a starter fails, then we're going nowhere. There's no way of starting it. So I keep this big clear tub at the back of the trailer. To be honest, it's over there because it's really hard to get to. So that's got things like throttle body, starter motor, second gear clutch pack for the Power Glide, also a brand new band in there for the Power Glide. So things that you're hoping you really don't want to get involved with. If we end up in that tub getting stuff out, it's a bad day. Now for you guys that are new to the channel and haven't seen this trailer, we built this last year. It's got quite a few little cool modifications in it. We've got a fridge in the front, which runs off a battery that lives in the trailer. So we open that up and that's all ready to go for our beers. That keeps everyone happy. So we use the inverter to charge the batteries for our drilling, grinder and electric power tools. Now we've got a little marine deep cycle battery in the front. Now the reason I've gone to that is because if the battery in the car fails for any reason, we could actually throw that in the car and that would start the car and run the car enough for what we need to do. The other thing is it's got an Anderson plug on the trailer. So when we're driving along, we're actually hooked into that the whole time, charging that battery. The fridge can run. The alternator on the car is a massive 240 amp deal, so that's nothing for it. So all that side of life works good. We always rock up to the track with a fully charged battery. That lets the fridge go for as long as we want, and it just keeps it a bit more comfortable. So that's about it in the way of the tubs we take. So there's 4 tubs. They usually sit in the bottom of the trailer, and having it sort of categorized a bit just helps you get to what you need faster, and you're not pulling the whole trailer out to get to it. Go back and watch our first ever drag and drive when we actually hired a U-Haul trailer if you want to see a bit of carnage there. Every time we needed something, it was pull everything out of the trailer because it only had the rear entry door in it. So we learned from that, and luckily over the past year or two we're starting to get this thing a bit more under control, and hopefully we can go all right with these drag and drive events. Once again, for you guys that don't know the car, we run 2 separate fuel systems. So we've got a 15 litre methanol tank up the front and a 60 litre unleaded tank in the back. So that switches over just by us pushing a button. So the beauty with that, when we get to the track, we're able to dump any unwanted unleaded out of this back tank to remove the weight from the car. So we've got a hose that's made up, it goes straight on the tank, the pump outlet, and into a jerry can that we use to drain that. So usually that can knock obviously your 20 litres out of there, which is 20 kilos, so it's all worth doing. So we take 4 of those containers for methanol, and this is our one that's strictly for petrol only. So old Bag stitched me up last year. He used that to get a bit of water on the last day when we needed to fill our radiator, and then we never emptied the water out of it. And 3 months later I'm at work thinking it was unleaded, and I poured it into a customer's car and it didn't run very well. Another really handy piece of gear is just a fold up plastic table. So usually that's the first thing we'll get out when we get to the track. Then that lets you put all your tubs, your tools, helmets, whatever you need to put on it, so it's not all lying on the ground. Now another little trick we've done for this year, we've got an airbag. So same as what you'd see in an old lowrider, but just one sits obviously on top of the diff, and we just put 20 pounds of air into the little valve up there, and that helps with the trailer being on the back. So because these drag cars usually run quite a lightweight spring in the back, we've got to do something when there's 4 of us in this car. So that's about 80% of the stuff in the trailer. A couple more jerry cans in the back. That's got enough room in there for all us to put our bags across the top. A bit more fuel down the bottom still, and a couple of tools, and we'll be ready to go. Over and out. We'll see you on the next one.
Well, that was interesting.
Break it down.